guy who were being hit by a bomb or something.
Yeah, that's the one I got.
Yeah.
I couldn't really understand what was going on with that one.
Yeah.
It was just because there was so much
Yeah,
noise around
exactly.
me.
Yeah, it was just a friend calling and saying that they were bombing his place.
Yeah, but I talked to a guy on the street
Yeah.
about, and he told me something about they took my brother.
Yeah.
Then he said, don't tell anybody. Then he just kind of didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So I didn't really seek out anybody else after that.
Did anyone see the guy being kidnapped by a car? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So true.
Yeah, and I want to say like that. For me, that was probably the most meaningful moment. But
Yeah.
like, just I think I kind of had a different experience from Abe because I mean I definitely had all the sound and stuff, but as I was running around, there was so little happening that I found it really disengaging. I think it's kind of what Nick was saying was that I kind of felt like I'm in this environment, but I'm not seeing much. I mean, there was the guy being kidnapped was early, and that was really that really kind of brought me in, and then I did find like the pile of bodies later, but it was like those were two really small moments amidst a lot of kind of wandering around but nothing happening. You know what I mean? And I felt like if the sounds had like if I had seen one thing happen in coordination with the sounds would have made me a little bit more wary. But the fact that I'm hearing these things going on but I don't see any kind of evidence of it was kind of disengaging.
Yeah.
Actually.
I had a very similar experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't get any phone calls, which I mean it might have been more if something like that happened.
Yeah, I didn't get that experience, but I think it might have been in the very beginning when I'm in my house. I saw somebody on another balcony across the street from me talking, but I couldn't really hear him.
Yeah,
So I immediately
saw
got
them.
it that I can there weren't people I'd have to get closer to the person to hear him, but I can never figure out how to get closer to him because everything started blowing up.
Yeah.
I also listened to like a radio broadcast which was in made-up language.
Yeah.
And so I sort of immediately went, all right, so this is not an English language game. So it's going to be like in Singlish, Simlish or Simlish or whatever it is. Which makes sense, right? And I was sort of set up for it to be like an internationalized game right off the bat, where it doesn't matter that you can't understand exactly what people are saying because the context makes it clear. Like it sounded like it was propaganda. But then I left and went across the road and saw the guy being kidnapped, and he was speaking in a Scottish accent. And I'm like, all right, I don't understand what's going on. Like I've been totally thrown out of context. This is weird. Where am I? It was pretty weird.
I saw like no people, with the exception of buildings being blown up. I feel like I didn't see any of these events that people are talking about, which is really interesting. So I saw one guy in a car, I think, for a really brief period of time. It was like all of like 3 seconds, and then that was it. So like all of like people being kidnapped. This is all like makes me almost want to play it again because I want to be like I missed everything.
Yeah,
you were talking about mines. I was like, they were mines.
I heard a woman calling for help, and I saw the guy,
Find her.
being kidnapped, but I didn't get.
Did
Like it was more like.
Did you try to help the woman?
I did.
I couldn't
yeah.
find her. I was like listening, and I'm like, "Where is she?" And then I realized that I had my headphones were in burning.
Halfway through the game, I had to check whether I had it on.
Yeah, it
Because
was-
none of
it was
the
like-
audio cues.
Did you find her?
That's when.
I went into the building, I was pretty sure she was in, but then the hallway collapsed and she stopped screaming, so I assumed that was it. So,
Exactly.
mhm.
Yeah. So I suspect I was like the worst. I played it completely the wrong way. And I kept getting cues. I don't know which one it was. Or that go that way, because I was going in a completely the wrong way all the time.
Yeah.
But so my first and I didn't play it that long because I started halfway through the session. My first experience, of course, is the radio, right? You walk up the radio and the radio turns red and it comes on.
Yeah.
So that was my understanding, that's my main mode of interaction is coming close to things. So every time I saw something interesting, I kept thinking, I better check everything else first before I go there, because once I go there,
Then
something's going to blow up and then I can't check it anymore.
Yeah.
As a result, I missed almost everything. Because it's like the only person I could interact with was the guy blocking the road. I walked up right up to him. He blew up, and then I started, and then later on the building blows up, and I'm realizing that I'm making things blow up in this world. As I walk around, wherever I go, bombs drop. Therefore, I shouldn't get close to anybody.
Yeah.
That was the conclusion.
That's my feeling in Half-Life too. It's like, oh, I go and I make things explode. I'm important.
Well, it might be building on some of
It's
my
not the war,
previous
it's me.
experiences with first person shooters, because like there was a guy that you see across the street when you come out the door, and it's like I better not get close to that guy. And then later on, that guy disappears. It's like I hope that guy made it because
Yeah. Oh yeah, that building did blow up.
yeah, because I didn't I didn't get close to it. Maybe he survived.
Yeah.
Or she. I don't know.
One of the things that kind of pulled me out of the game, I had a very strong emotional experience with it at first, with the woman screaming and all the audio design and stuff like that. But the moment I realized that I couldn't actually die, really pulled me out of the experience, because this was such a, it was all building up to this feeling of helplessness and stuff like that. And it was like, oh wait, actually you're invulnerable, which seems very at cross purposes of your themes. Could you talk a little bit about why you chose not to include permadeath?
Yeah, we actually did it in order to make the experience longer, because else you will probably die in the start or when the first guy is hitting you.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a long discussion about having this health meter going down, but then suddenly it's a goal about that and not about going through and see these different kinds of experiences. And I'm talking a little bit about strategy later, where you have the curve going up, but it actually ends at the climax where it's the worst possible situation. Like your girlfriend is being punished or tortured or something like that. So that was the choice we made. Yeah. Yeah.
I'd wonder if an alternative to that might be that the character you are playing as can die, but then you come back as someone else.
Yeah.
Kind of like a reincarnation sort of mechanic,
another
right?
phase.
Which I guess sort of it might cut down on the negative impact, right? Because then it turns, instead of you being invulnerable, you're the guy from Quantum Leap, right?
Whereas
And you're
more
just
like-
hopping from body to
Reminded me
body.
more of Nidhogg, that fighting game where it's like if you get killed, you become the other guy.
This is actually a design problem which popped up in Amnesia. I found that at first, Amnesia, people who haven't played it, it's a horror game in which you have no weapons, you're wandering around, you're being chased by unspeakable horrors which kill you. But when you die, you respawn, right? So after the first few deaths, I didn't really get afraid anymore. I'm just like,
there's nothing
now
at stake,
it's a
right?
puzzle game,
Mm.
right? So I'm just trying to get to avoid things rather than trying to stay alive for as long as possible. I know that I'll just go back to the next respawn point. So I mean, I don't know what the solution is to this problem.
Well, it could just be never. You make it so that you're never put in a situation where you're absolutely going to die.
Mm.
And I expected when I got hit by the guard through the tunnel towards the gas station that I'd limp for the rest of the game.
Mm.
And then I just waited like I did in Halo, and then my shield went up.
Mm.
And then when I hit the mine, I expected to totally die there. But it was kind of interesting, like dodging away from the rubble and everything.
Mm.
But I think there could be a way to make it so that you're not. You get put in the dangerous situations, but the danger is really happening to other people, and not really to yourself.
So there's kind of this tension between the kind of intent that filmmakers have, where they want to tell a full story from start to finish, and then the reality of what the interaction with the game is like, where you have agency inside of that world.
Yeah.
And that necessarily means that you could take an action which means that the story can't be told because you die, right? Or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So what are you going to do, right?
Or you go in the wrong direction.
Yeah, you go in the wrong
Equally
direction.
damaging to
Yeah.
the
Those
story.
stories are just
as valid, or should be just as valid.
Yeah, potentially. But I mean, what's the design intent here? The design intent is to tell the entire story, right? So I don't know what the right.
I think there's some validity in this session, what's the venue that you expect first-person victim to be played in? If it's meant to be a single person in front of the computer, then they're never going to be able to get a full experience of the game unless they're really hardcore. If they're death in it, unless they're really hardcore about it. On the other hand, it's meant to be played in environments like these, where you're taking out to shows, to festivals, and to groups of people, and you can talk about it. And it doesn't matter that one person died. It could be really, really, really powerful if you have a game where there is actual death.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
think for me, there's a little bit of, I don't know, like the train accident issue, right? Which is that, I'm hearing about all these things that I didn't see that's making me want to see them.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, in real life, you don't necessarily want to see the rocket go into the building, right? Because, I mean, good God, like that's horrifying, right? But in this game, it's like, oh, cool, I need to put myself in a position so that I feel like I missed everything in this game. So now I'm like, I need to play it again. And yet people are also describing experiences where they're you know, hiding in buildings and stuff like that. And so it's this dilemma of like, in a game where you have very little agency, your feeling of completing the game is seeing things, because that's the stimulus you get. It's like, oh, I'm going to see everything that's in the game. Now I need to find the mines. Now I need to find a mass grave, right? I mean, so
You have no agency in the game, but yet you still move like a soldier. You're still strafing, you're still jumping. And that kind of was a little jarring to me.
Yeah, I thought jump was kind of a weird.
But if I could cower,
There's a
or if
jump?
I could crouch, or
Yeah.
if the verbs
How
I was
could you
given
jump?
actually
What does
matched
it
it.
do?
Some space bars.
Yeah,
Didn't do
me
anything.
too.
Well,
That
that's
was the
wrong.
thing
It
I
got
was
me
missing.
stuck in
I
a
mean,
wall
one
and
of
made me
the
start
kind of
over.
ranger verbs that you will find something like thief is kind of like peek over.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, crouch.
Yeah,
So
that's what I wanted to
that
do
was
with
the
the
thing I
arms.
wanted to do.
Yeah,
Like, better walk someone to
I actually
Yeah.
kind of
yeah, like sprinting,
Not
like
being able
running.
to,
Ducking
usually
cover.
moving fairly slowly in the way that when you're walking move slowly, but then having like the short amount of time that I can sprint. So
Yeah.
wait
But
and
the
then
cameras
dash
show,
across
like,
Yeah.
jars.
and
I'd
find
better
someone.
get
That would
away
actually
from
kind
the
of,
ball.
but not always being able to move that fast. Because if you
Yeah.
can always move that fast, then you sort of get that powerful feeling.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
It seems like I don't think the impulse of I want to go back and I want to see all these things is actually bad for the game at all. I think it's great for the game because this encourages people to want to try it again and to see all the work that you put in. Which is why I think having something like death, or at least reducing health, even if you don't make it a visible bar, but you have something that if you just like get shot enough times you die.
Yeah.
I think it will. I think people will want to go back and play it again if they have a sense that there's more to the game than what they've seen so far.
Yeah, exactly. And it's actually really on purpose, this one, that we have Abe wanting to try it out again, you know. And imagine that I have a class of 30 school kids who just tried it for 10 minutes like you did, and then having the teacher talk with them about how it is to be in this situation. Then there's one guy saying, yeah, I tried this, I tried that. And I think it would be very powerful if one or two says, yeah, I died actually.
Yeah.
I couldn't do anything more, and so on.
I got shot and I died.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like that's just so weird if you think
Yeah.
about video games, right? It's like I got shot once and I died. Well, actually,
I think what I was actually intending to say was that the not seeing is actually more valuable than the seeing itself,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's why I think death is a valuable thing, because in this game, if I just invest enough time, presumably I'll see everything unless, you know, it happens when I'm not there, but then I just restart it, right? And so this idea that like, at this point, well, you didn't see it because you weren't there, or it just didn't happen in your session or whatever.
I think it's pretty awesome if you had this experience where you have all these moments that depict different horrors of war. You have the session where everyone talks about it as if they went through different perspectives, even though they all played the same game.
Yeah.
And I think that's a valid experience, right? And these things are happening all at the same time in these war areas. Not everyone sees them.
Yeah. Great feedback. Yeah, that was actually what we were going to talk about, so that's good. We can talk more about it later, but as I said, it's the inspiration is from tragedy, of course, the Greek philosophers, and where they said that medicine is used to heal the body and tragedy is to heal the soul, or at least to make you think about things. It can be a political advisor as a teacher of morality. And the art of tragedy combined with the technology and interactivity we could use these things for. Faisal was really interested in this part also, to use tragedy like, you know, getting catharsis and so on, you know, that you get in there and then in the end you actually realize, oh my God, there's nothing to do, I'll always die, or I'll always, you know, everybody's, as you say, you're actually the bomb running around and you trigger all the death. Did anyone try to save the guy in the burning car at the gas station? Yeah, what happened? Did he blow up also? Or?
It just blew up.
Yeah. Yeah.
You shouldn't have gotten close to him.
So this is the dramatic experience model, which is actually based on Brenda Laurel's Flying Wedge, which we then tried to implement. And the idea of Brenda Laurel is that you start a story with a lot of, yeah, maybe I'll go over here so the camera can see it. You start with a lot of possibilities. In the start of the story, you have a new story, okay, I'm in this room, anything can happen. And then as the thing, maybe the girlfriend calls, you know, and then there's less opportunities, but there's still other things that can go on. You can still maybe see the guy being kidnapped in the next scene, but there's 2 events that are not possible anymore. And next time, the girlfriend will maybe call you again or send you an SMS or something, and she'll still be there, but there'll be others cut away. So now you cannot save the guy in the burning car, or you'll not see the rocket hitting the tower. And then you get further down, maybe, I know Lars, he tried that yesterday. Did anyone get the phone in the container? Yeah. And there she's saying that now there's some people who got her and now she's getting dragged into somewhere. But there's still 2 others. Maybe you can see the hanging guy and another guy being burned up at a bridge. And there's 2 others that are not available anymore. And then here there's only like 1 left, which could be the torturing of her. And did you see that in the end? No, because then there's actually more here, but it's just the schematics of it, right? But in that way, you might see the end of her, but you could also see something else. So it's actually the probability of following her story becomes greater, but there's still possibilities to see other things. So it's not one fixed story you need to see. There's other things, and then you make these emergent narratives, you know, which is a cheap way of saying that everybody generates stories, right, depending on what you see. So everybody in here would have a different story, but it's communicating the same theme. So that's, I think, the power of this idea that you can see different events and discuss it afterwards in a class and then talk about the theme based on that. Yeah.
So as how this applies specifically to first-person victim,
Yeah.
I mean, does it actually prevent certain sequences from happening if certain previous sequences have not happened?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not like this is just happening to the wall and you're a camera walking around it.
There's some consequences and some causes and effects because, for example, you know, when you're curious about seeing to help this girl, where is she and so on, that's kind of setting it up, and you know that you want to follow that line. Then you set up your own goals instead of having the game always to set up. Maybe while you go out, suddenly there's a helicopter coming, and then you want to escape that instead. So the goals are always changing, and it doesn't need to be the game that always triggers it. There's people who just want to wander in the hills or something like that, you know. So it's a lot about, it's a cheap way of kind of making this huge environment with a lot of things. There's only 42 events in this one, you know, instead of having a branching tree that always goes out, and you need to have all the endings. So that's what we were really interested in, trying this concept of emergent narratives, which doesn't give the exact story, but we try to use engagement to kind of make it more dramatic and so on.
But I'm wondering why it's necessary to procedurally have those events happen, you know, one after the other, when you could just have the events. You could just have the events happening in the world in general. I mean, you write the events differently if you do this, and you just have them run all the time. So if you saw them, great. If you didn't see them, you still get that narrowing of focus because you know there's a limit to what you can see at any given time. But computationally, it would be it's an easier thing because then you don't have to think about cause and effect.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. But we just wanted to experiment a little bit with this cause and effect, because you're right, if you're in the real world and you don't know anyone and you don't have any relations, you know, then, well, you could just run around in the world and see the things. But in this case, we wanted to have a relation. That's also the neighbor coming, actually. He's the guy being kidnapped and later being shot in a, I don't know if anybody saw that, but then you can follow him. But you don't know if you're following him. You can just risk getting into him again.
But you never see, could you see someone in the middle of the story? At least the way how you set it up in your game right now. Like, could you run into the girlfriend if you didn't pick up the phone call?
Yes.
And then, but then you have no idea who she is.
No, but then you just see, okay, that's a girl. You know,
then it's just a girl, right? Okay.
But that actually makes the idea of spawning different places, as Todd said, like this idea of, you know, when you die, then you just start over in another place, and then you're suddenly another person that didn't know this girl.
Yeah, it's a different story.
Yeah, exactly.